Welcome to the Autumn 2022 edition of Team Rayceen Forum. Hi, I'm Krylios, Team Rayceen Productions MC and producer. For this series, I will moderate a discussion about current events and pop culture here on the Team Rayceen YouTube channel. Today, I'm joined by special panelist, the goddess of DC herself, the one and only Rayceen Pendarvis. Hey, Rayceen.
Hey, greetings and salutations to all.
Yes, and today we are joined by a whole bevy of guests, and so we welcome them all to join us right now. Welcome, welcome, welcome all. And we'll have each of them introduce themselves as they turn on their cameras. So welcome to the Team Rayceen Forum. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. We have Faith Gibson Hubbard, Dr. Ashley J. Elliott, Erin Palmer, and of course, our wonderful duo from the Normal Anomaly Initiative. I'm going to give everyone just a second to introduce themselves to the audience and just let everybody know a little bit about you. So I'll start with you, Faith Gibson Hubbard.
Hi, my name is actually Dr. Faith Gibson Hubbard. I see Dr. Ashley. I was like, let me put
Yes.
DR as well. But I am a resident of Ward 5. I just recently ran for the Council of the District of Columbia and got to know this amazing woman, Erin, right here as we were running. And I'm a mom, I'm an educator, I'm a community builder, and just excited to be here.
Awesome, awesome. Next up, let's go with Erin Palmer.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really nice to see Faith as well. Again, I love that we continue to cross paths. My name is Erin Palmer, and I'm a former candidate for DC Council Chairwoman. And I am a current advisory neighborhood commissioner in Ward 4, which is the local neighborhood level elected office. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And everyone, please share your location or where you're calling in from, so everyone can know. Let's go to Dr. Ashley J. Elliott.
Hello, hello. I am Dr. Ashley Elliott, also known as Dr. Vivid, your favorite fun size, pint size, travel size therapist, actual doctor of clinical psychology and all things queer. I am coming to you from Ward 7, but I have lived in Ward 6 and 7 for the majority of my life.
Awesome. And let's go over to the Normal Anomaly.
Hello, hello, everyone. My name is Jordan Edwards. I am the Center Director at the Normal Anomaly Initiative. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm born and raised in Houston.
And I am Joelle Escuda. I am Director of Programming here at the Normal Anomaly, Houston, Texas. My pronouns are she, her, hers, hot girl, city girl, icy girl, material girl. And I am now a Houston girl.
Yes, lovely, lovely. Well, it's such a pleasure having everyone here. And before we jump into everything, let's get some screenshots done. So I'm going to have everybody pose, look into the camera, and let's do 3, all right? Ready? 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. And 3, 2, 1. Perfect, perfect. All right, now it's time for us to discuss some recent news stories, and we'll put the story up on the screen and we'll talk about it. If you have an opinion about it, something new to say about it, just jump on in and let's discuss. So the first thing we want to discuss today is this: Casa Ruby shuts down the rest of its operations and workers go unpaid. There's been a lot of drama, a lot has been happening when it comes to Casa Ruby here in Washington, D.C. For anyone who doesn't know, since 2012-2013, Casa Ruby has been a place for LGBTQ people. They started as a shelter, and the operations grew to become a space and a place that LGBTQ people could go to for resources, including housing, immigration resources, job finding resources, all those things. And as of recently, they've been in the news because allegedly their director, Ruby Carrada, has fled the country, baby, with the people's money, allegedly. And actually, the Rayceen has there are no charges, being brought forward, as there needs to be an answer to where the money has gone, all that money from the government, all of that. So let's talk about it. Anybody want to jump onto this? Go ahead, Erin Palmer.
Thank you. I wouldn't normally be so eager to speak first, but the Casa Ruby location is pretty close to our advisory neighborhood commission. So I wanted to speak to this issue from the neighborhood level perspective, which is that there were somewhat strained relations between some neighbors and the Casa Ruby facility. And it's so disheartening and discouraging to see this, because I think it fuels some very negative stereotypes about this type of organization and the services that are needed. And it makes it that much harder to bring in something new, to make sure that gaps are being filled and needs are being met. And that's just truly unfortunate that what happened here has added to a situation where it's already kind of difficult from the neighborhood level to build the relationships to have services that are integrated into the community and not have neighbors frustrated and angry.
Yeah, I'll jump in as well, because I think I've watched this situation kind of unfold for some time around just what Erin said. I live in Ward 5, where it's most live here in the District of Columbia. But I think we struggle with this just in general around service provision within community. We have several houses within my particular neighborhood, which are for persons with intellectual disabilities. And also there have been other halfway houses here at times. And neighbors have been all up in arms. I'm like, these are our neighbors. But I think this situation with Casa Ruby also shows just how desperate the need is around services, particularly for our disconnected LGBTQ youth. And that has been a conversation for a really long time in the district. And Ruby was playing this role, but we knew we needed more. I think it also speaks to how not only community, but people who are within the process can be a part of the evaluation of an organization, so that we can catch problems before they get too far down the road. I think there have been some flags along the way. And, because we were in such desperate need as a city for these services, maybe we didn't pay as close of attention. And maybe there's something that we could learn here. But I think the part that's really the hardest is that we're going to lose the services, but also that workers are going unpaid. And many of these particular workers were already doing work that's hard to do, right? You're putting so much of yourself into it. And so whose responsibility is that? I think is the other question that we should ask, because the city is giving this money to an organization to do the work, because not everything is inherently governmental. There are people who are within community who should be doing work, and we don't want to lose that ability, because I know while I love government, I've worked in government and I think it does great work here in the district, government can't do everything. So how can we make sure that we're learning from the mistakes here, but also growing the network around where we know many of our residents in the city need support?
Wonderful. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is something that is near and dear to my heart, because I'm in Ward 7, and Ward 7 has a high population of LGBTQIA plus youth that often are on the streets and resorting to other work that is not safe, that's not healthy for them. And places like Casa Ruby were giving them home, giving them shelter, and providing them with positive connections. And I definitely agree with Doc. We need another advisory board made of queer folk that can oversee, that understand the needs, that understand the disconnects with the community, and also understand the disconnects in handling. Ruby started that as a passion project out of her own life's circumstances. And people have good intentions, and things just tend to go kind of spiral out of control with other things going on. Ruby, girl, you gone, girl. Come back, girl. But we need to remember that a lot of people from the community who are starting this have no financial background, have no advising or systemic background that help them keep these things afloat. So it's important for us to bridge the gap between administration and our community and come together so that these places, Casa Ruby will not be the big void that we have.
Certainly. And I think that's what's so heartbreaking about this situation is because Casa Ruby did such good work within the community. So many people have benefited from it. So many people have gotten jobs. So many people have been able to, based on their immigration status, they were able to find a way to make things work, to, all of those things. Many people who needed housing. And so to lose that kind of, real resource there that so many people could look to is definitely, a blow to the city and a loss to the community. So hopefully, something else can come in and fill that void, and not just one other thing, but many other things, can come in and fill that void. So from one scandal involving the LGBTQ community to another. So the next one we'll be talking about is the late Hyattsville mayor has been accused of embezzling funds from the DC Charter School Network. To add some background to this, he was the mayor of Hyattsville, and he actually passed away in January from suicide. He died by suicide in January. Any thoughts on this? The embezzling said almost $2 million from the DC Charter Fund. And so the DC Charter Fund, they had, applied basically to get all these technological stuff from a company that he was involved with. And they ordered a whole host of things, thousands of, laptops and MacBooks and tablets and all of those things, because this was during the height of COVID, when students needed these things to be able to get online and to be able to be connected. And they ordered all these things from him, about $2 million worth, and then they didn't receive anything. So they had to order from somewhere else, and they did get it. However, within that time, he had acquired 9 vehicles, a property in West Virginia, and a whole host of other things. Those vehicles also including 2 Teslas and a Ford F-450. I remember reading that. So this is all now coming out at this point right now. What are our thoughts on this? According to the reports I've read, the community really loved him a lot because, he did a lot for the community and all of that. So that was the impression, that was given even upon his death. But now with this coming out, it makes people wonder even more now about, all that was going on. Actually, let's go with Rayceen, then let's go with Erin. Yeah.
Once again, here we are looking at someone, a person of color, who happens to be a part of the LGBT community, that has mismanaged funds intended to help others. But it's here at play, it's a combination of things. The gatekeepers were not at the gate watching. And I know, and I've been on many boards over the years, that's why I don't do them anymore, because when money gets misappropriated, they want to throw somebody under the bus. And it's easy to throw someone who happens to be dead under the bus when the gatekeepers are part of the problem. All of that is a trickling down effect. If I'm giving you a certain amount of money as a gatekeeper, I need to be held accountable of how that money is spending. We need to be meeting accountable, and we need to be saying, okay, well, we're the computers, we're the books, Where's this salary going to? Who is this being paid to? And it all needs to be noted, and it all needs to be out, and the public records need to be public. So, it's easy for people to now, when somebody's dying, they can misappropriate things, they can fudge things, they can put it all on one person. But I'm sure he wasn't the only one. If he had his hand in the till, I don't know. It's horrible to speak ill of the dead. But if somebody got their hand in the till, it seems like it's a whole lot of people that's pulling and got their hands in the till. So it's a lot of thieves in the temple.
Listen, they said now that they've gotten back some money from the insurance, they've gotten about, I think, 1 point something million from the insurance, and then they're supposed to recover some more when the properties and cars and things that he had accrued, once those things are basically given back, they're just going to, so and now they said they're doing a review of the entire situation to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again, where anyone could be, this. I guess they didn't have a great review board or whatever it was in the first place. Erin, you had your hand up then, Dr. Faith.
Faith, would you like to go first?
I just wanted to provide just some additional context.
Yes,
I think this is really important here, that it wasn't just the charter network. It was a particular local education agency. And in DC, we have many, which are school districts. And it was KIPP, which is a very large network. And just thinking about the time and how much money we had moving around meeting the needs of COVID, I think it speaks to a couple of things. Number one, he was someone I had the opportunity to work with in the education space, and I can say was loved. And you never know why certain decisions are made by people. And so I don't want to put any assessment out there about that. But I do know that during that time, we had a lot of needs of students that needed to be met, right? Which we're trying to get laptops in place and all these different things. And a lot of the protocols that we had previously were totally relaxed in order to make this happen. So you're right, Rayceen, that a lot of the protocols, not even just gatekeepers, but protocols, because we were like, kids need laptops, kids need books, we need Wi-Fi, we need all these things, were relaxed in ways that maybe we need to look at making sure that if we have this problem again, that we have a lot of different people that are looking. Because from what I understand, a lot of people were very surprised. And I know when his death was initially mentioned, I was like, oh my gosh, like he has a family and a husband and young children, like what's going on? And we talked a lot about mental health, which I think was important. But also, I think a lot of people were like, well, what's going on? Why did that happen? We didn't understand. And I remember someone telling me, in a couple months, there's going to be this story that comes out. And I was like, what story? Tell me, what's the story? And then when the story came out, I was like, oh God, like that's a story, like $2.2 million. What we doing? Where's the stuff that happened from that? And also as a public school parent, and I know Erin is as well, I was just thinking about, gosh, well, what happened when those materials didn't come?
Yeah.
But I think it really teaches us so much about, number one, the disparities that we already knew were existing that we hadn't paid attention to. And then COVID shined a bright light. We were trying to meet those needs. And then the needs still went unmet for some reason. But we do need to make sure, because we'll be here again. COVID is not a one-time thing. Something else is coming, I'm sure. And so how do we make sure that we're not in the same place so that it's not left on one person who knows what pressures were there? Because you're right, let's not speak ill of the dead. And we don't know what pressures were on that person or the other people that were around them, right? But how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? Because that lets us know that if this $2.2 million isn't being spent where it needs to be spent, then someone's suffering, and likely it's our students. And so how can we just make sure we don't end up there again?
Certainly. Thank you so much for that insight. Erin Palmer.
Thank you. Those comments are so important. So thank you, Faith, and thank you, Rayceen. And I think what stands out to me here is the scope and scale of what happened. And I'll say it again, $2.2 million, which is just a whole lot of money. And in the past example involving Casa Ruby and this one, it's it's important to think about who's impacted by that. And it's usually vulnerable communities that are already facing disparities, as Faith noted. For something of this scope and scale, there are others who are responsible. I agree with Rayceen about that. It's the gatekeepers. It's those who are responsible for oversight. And I'd like to have more information and transparency around what they did and didn't do here, in part so we can have better procedures and protocols in place. And something I talked about repeatedly when running for DC Council Chairwoman is the council's role in oversight. And that matters for schools, and it matters for both traditional public schools and public charter schools, which have different setups and different oversight mechanisms, but they sit atop this process in many ways. And I think they have a responsibility here to, at least at this point, understand what happened and why, and how we can prevent it from happening again.
Certainly, certainly. All right. Next up, we will talk about something that's also quite unfortunate, and this is the water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi. Many people are stepping in to help. The situation right now in Jackson is, out of control. People in the capital city of this state are not able to use running water in the United States of America. Thoughts on this? Thoughts on this? Who'd like to go? Let's start with you, Dr. Ashley.
Let's just cut to the chase. Marginalized communities of color do not have access to the same things that communities where people who do not represent or not of color have access to. We're saying the same thing that's been happening in Mississippi, happened in Flint, happened in different areas of Texas for a while, happened in PG County and Washington, D.C. for months, where there was not clean water. Residents were told via an advisory, hey, you can't drink your tap water because of the level of chemicals from people dumping pharmaceuticals or other things that were going on in there. However, no one seems to care because it's not affecting the communities that the status quo would like to protect and like to coddle. And the fact that these people are depending on us and they can't depend on their government that has oversight, that has known, we're just hearing about this, but this is something that has been going on for quite some time. And water is a right. It is not a privilege. Water, I'm gonna say it again, access to water is a right, not a privilege. So to have people who can't bathe, they can't wash their hair, they can't brush their teeth, they can't take their medication without having to figure out how I'm going to get cases, how can I afford cases, or how can things be transported to me, is a travesty. And it further sheds light on the fact that this country's equality and equity are a thing that we just do not take seriously. When I say we, I mean the people who don't look like me. We do not take seriously. And Mississippi, because of where it is, it's constantly getting overlooked. When we talk about the South, and we also talk about, we have to be real and talk about racism and stereotype and privilege when we talk about these things. I live in Washington, D.C. and been here all my life. I remember we had an advisory in Georgetown, baby. By the end of the day, people were there, the water company was there was advisories, the community had been, we're gonna make sure it's together, and you didn't hear about it again. But when there are communities of color and impoverished communities of color who may not have access to certain resources, it's easier to overlook, because after a while, their exasperation turns to depression, and the depression turns to hopelessness and helplessness, because they feel like, we have to stand here because no one will stand for us. And it's really a sad thing to see.
Certainly, certainly. Thanks so much for that. I'll go to Faith and I'll go to Normal Anomaly.
So I agree with all that Dr. Ashley just said, but I want to add in some additional points. So my mother's side of the family is from Louisville, Mississippi, which is just north of Jackson. And so I spent many summers going to Louisville and wanting to go to the big city of Jackson to hang out at Jackson State University and family members. The biggest problem here is infrastructure. And I think that while we are talking about how communities of color get the raw end of every single stick, for sure, what we have not done as a city here in the district, many other places, is always be able to invest in infrastructure because we are busy investing in other things that are really important. And a lot of times it's the federal dollars that need to flow to jurisdictions to make sure that things are around infrastructure are happening. The infrastructure in Jackson has been a problem for a very, very long time. There was flooding even when I was younger growing up that caused water problems back then. So we've known that it's been a problem, and it's even been said from their leadership now that they've been working. They asked for like $8 or $9 million for infrastructure that they didn't receive from the state, which should have been a pass through of federal dollars, but yet they were funding other things. I think what we need to do as community members is get wise to our infrastructure needs and to demand that, the same as we demand other things. Because water is something, I have a glass right here, it looks all clear, but it goes through my Brita, which is 99%, making sure that stuff is being filtered out for my babies. And I test the water in house because you're right. We did have a water crisis right here in the district. And it wasn't that we didn't want to pay attention to it, but we also need the federal dollars and the focus from the federal government. And here in DC, it's both state and local together, but our focus around infrastructure. And we have to demand that because it's going to continue to get old and we're going to continue to need to work on it. So it's not just that we're Black or brown. That is an additional layer. But we also need to make sure that we are focused on infrastructure needs, the same as we talk about that we want everything else.
Definitely. Normal anomaly.
Thank you for that. This story, it does hit a little closer to home because it is in the South. And I don't know if anyone has been to Jackson in the recent past. I actually was there a couple months ago, and Jackson is like a completely different world. It is, you talk about the South, and then there's the deep South. Jackson is very much like 1890s South. Like it is, we are talking antebellum. And I'm not even joking. Like it is just a different world. Like I thought Houston was slow and backwards. No, Jackson is just it's not even a city to me. I was like, this is not a city, this is a town. But I say all that to say that because it is what we're thinking of, I don't even think that they can fathom because literally they don't even have the resources to be able to thrive. They are merely surviving. There is no transportation there. I mean, water has been an issue, an ongoing issue. Like outside of this unfortunate situation, the water crisis has been ongoing. Like it has been an issue. And because the city doesn't even have things to thrive, the people are just in survival mode. And they don't understand what it even can be. So when we talk about things like infrastructure, I don't even think that the people can even fathom what that is because they are just trying to get through the day with what they have and what they're accustomed to. And I also think that Black lives are expendable. And there are different levels of our lives being expendable. But in the South, baby, a Black life don't mean nothing. Like it is nothing for them to consistently ignore Black lives in the deep South because there is no value. There is no value to Jackson outside of what white people or people in power see. And that is reality in the South. It's very hard to fathom, but that literally is how it is here.
And that's the work that we're doing to make those changes. And to make those changes, we have to understand, like Joelle talks about a lot, is the pyramids of power. And understanding that the infrastructure up top actually is not disseminating the information to the bottom. We have to work from the bottom to take care of the most marginalized and work up top. And because we're not doing that, Jackson is probably going to be at the bottom under DC. And so they don't have those same type of knowledge and infrastructure. Understand that I need to ask for this. I need to come together and get this. I don't have to ask for water over here if I actually have worked on the infrastructure, and we'll be in a better spot. If we got the $8 million that we needed to build the infrastructure. That's the type of thing that we don't get often because we're not acquitted to the spaces and the privilege that we need to understand the knowledge that we need in those spaces. And I think that comes in back when we talk about the money embezzlement, not knowing where the gatekeepers are, not knowing who to reach out to, not knowing who to communicate with. That is a lot of what's going on because do I need to test my water at home knowing that 2 years ago that we had a water problem? I may not know that. I was not educated on that. And I think that that's where we have a fault and as a community.
Certainly. And speaking of, just things from the top and all of that, of course, what also came up in the news is that welfare scandal with, former, NFL athlete Brett Favre, who was paid with welfare money for speeches in Mississippi by the Mississippi government for speeches that he did not do. So he was paid very handsomely for speeches. So now he's being questioned by the FBI. So it's things like these. It's things like these. So please, Erin, go ahead.
Thank you. This discussion is so amazing, and I'm really thankful for everyone participating here. And I love the discussion from Dr. Elliott about water as a right, from Faith about Dr. Faith, about infrastructure, from Normal Anomaly about power structures and disparities. And I think absent kind of a fundamental shift in how we view all of it, it's going to get harder because of climate change. So I think all of these things we're talking about become more strained. And so we really need pressure and sea change in terms of how we talk and think about it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Now let's move on to what's currently in the news. And here's some of the latest. The vice president of Argentina survives an assassination attempt after the gun jams. There's the video released where you can see the moment where, as you can see, the gun here being pointed at her, and then the gun jams. So apparently it was, the firearm was loaded with 5 bullets. So, there was also some quick thinking there by her people to grab the man and all of that. Now, when it comes to assassination attempts and assassinations happening, there have been quite a few very recently. Like there have been quite a few, even in Japan. Former Prime Minister Abe Shinto, it's been quite a few things around. What are your thoughts on this? And I wonder how the Argentina vice president is feeling right now, luckily escaping with her life. Thoughts, Dr. Faye?
It made me think about what Normal Anomaly was just saying about structures of power, actually, and why people uprise and want to do certain things. I think assassination is quite extreme, but so often because we live in these oppressed spaces where you don't know what you don't know, what you don't know, and other people who you go to for information also don't know. You then get frustrated and angry and upset, and there's stories that you make up because you don't know what you don't know, and you take out these particular actions. I think it really speaks to the work, at the probably not even at the grassroots, but like at the seed level, around how you can start helping our communities, how we can all start helping our communities really understand what we deserve and the rights that we have, so that we can take different pathways, because this is where we end. When people just they are powerful, but we have just oppressed for so long, that this is where we end. But I'm sure she feels very lucky for her life. But to me, at the same time, there's something else deeper going on here. That's not just about that one gunman, but about just the systems of oppression and the structures that are probably there in the country that are holding people back from what they deserve.
Certainly. Normal Anomaly, then Dr. Ashley.
Thank you for that, Dr. Faye. You said something that made me think about how oftentimes we are taught to eliminate the problem, and they may view the problem as the person, but it's actually the structure. And if they don't understand how to disseminate the information to break down that structure, it's like, let me get this person and my problem is done. But that's not it. It's somebody else will get in place because they still have the same type of ideology that person does. So if we don't break down that, we can't make the changes. So I think that we gotta teach the community how to do better and what decisions to make the change that we want to make the change.
Certainly. I do also want to add that, just add to the updated news, according to the officials there, that the shooter was from Brazil with Nazi ties. So I wanted to add that in there just for context. Dr. Ashley Elliott.
You gonna sprinkle that little bit on there. And then
I just gotta, give you everything. Just so.
But I think as a clinician over the last 2.5 years, or what I like to affectionately call like season 3, episode 9 of the pandemic that we've been in, we have seen an uptick in aggression and violence. And like Dr. Faith was saying, when people who are oppressed feel that they have no option and they feel cornered, you lash out. And what Normal Anomaly brought up is this idea, we have schemas. Schemas are the structure for how we see the world. And for instance, a kid sees, a teacher. If I don't, and I'm in a teacher's classroom, if I don't learn what I'm supposed to learn, is it the fault of the teacher or is it the fault of the system? And we have to start understanding that most of us have been sheltered from the way systems work in order to keep us powerless, when we are in fact powerful, because we are the residents that keep things running. We, the people, have to contribute to the community, to the city, to the town, to the state, in order for things to run. But we don't think like that, especially people of color, because we have been marginalized, segregated, pushed to the side. So we see the majority as powerful. And when we're talking about violence and aggression, a lot of our protests, or a lot of, I'm not going to talk about Sir Nazi, that's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother bag. But when we talk about our normal versions of outcrying and protest, a lot of us have seen over the last couple of years that people of color have been told, shush, shush, shush. You're too loud. Like, that's not going to do anything. Or after you do the hashtag, or after you do the march, or after you do the petition, what do? And people who don't have the resources, or don't have certain levels of education, or have not just been exposed to how we get together and how we combat the system in a way that does not just involve violence, that's all they know. That comes to me naturally. Aggression comes to me naturally because pain comes to me naturally, because that's what I'm used to. I know how to lash out when I don't have. I know how to respond to being hurt. I know how to respond to being disrespected. And it's up to us and our communities to say, there's different ways to learn to express yourself. There are different ways I always say there's an umbrella. When people tell me, I felt disrespected, what was underneath that disrespect? Did you feel hurt because that person said that? Were you saddened by that? Were you offended by what's underneath the offense? And having more conversations with our community about why things impact us the way they do, what fuels the rage, will help us transform our schemas and how we better attack the system.
Certainly. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for that. All right. Liz Truss has now become the UK's new prime minister, as the Conservative Party has chosen her to replace Boris Johnson, who announced he was stepping down at the beginning of the summer. She actually just did her first speech to the nation a few minutes ago, where she vows to go after the energy crisis and make that something important, as she is now the new leader of Britain. Any thoughts on this? Any thoughts on the type of Britain she's inheriting from Boris Johnson, especially after how he's handled COVID and how his premiership, has gone, as well as Britain's, new space in the world, especially not being tethered to Europe in their own way, and what that looks like as this country moves forward. Thoughts?
My initial thought is that I want another season of The Crown on Netflix because I feel like I learned so much, not only about this, but also about the prime minister relationship to the crown. And I think I'm saying that jokingly, but also it was really an education too on how their system, while the United States system was really quite similar to what they have going on there, that there are cycles of more liberal and more conservative. And I think that, just like here in our nation, it has swung in different directions. So it will be interesting. I always like seeing women in leadership, even if they aren't exactly like me, because I just believe that women, we think a little differently here in the world and how we want to nurture the world. And so I think it'll just be interesting. But I do want that other season of Crown.
Me too. I'm looking forward to it. Definitely. And I heard they just cast William and Kate. I didn't even know they were going up that far. So yes, it will be interesting to see how this plays out. The UK has been, a little bit just in a shaky place for a while now, and maybe this will bring some more stability. Let us see. Boris was very controversial in his time there, and maybe having someone less controversial is good for the state. So let us see how that plays out with their new premiership. The last thing we'll discuss today is what has happened at an Atlanta ball, honey. Yes, so apparently at Atlanta Black Pride, the judges at a ball were sprayed with bear mace after someone got chopped. So that meant the $10,000 grand prize for a face was not given out. This is the first time in history that someone has maced the entire judges panel at a major event. Oh, Lord Jesus. Rayceen, have you ever experienced this type of thing at a ball?
Let me just say, someone who is from the ballroom community with over 40 plus years of, and it breaks my heart to see that. It was sad to see that. Let me just say this. Ballroom came out of a celebration of resilient spirit of trans women and trans men. It was created for the need we didn't have safe spaces, so we created our own. We created, if we weren't celebrated in a world that would not honor us in ways of the way it should be, we created a world within where we were celebrated and we were kings and queens. But it also taught us, even though the world is not fair, within your own community, it was a family. It was a fellowship. It was places that folks supported you, celebrated you, honored you, taught you a lot of things about life. When now we are in this moment of ballroom has become mainstream, and it's become about profit over community. And when it's about profit, greed gets into control. People become greedy. People's need to compete becomes vicious. And then we coming out of a cycle of 2 years of being locked down. So folks are really tense. Their money situation is tense. Folks are in moments of survival of the fittest, where it's vicious. It's so vicious. It's heartbreaking to see. And then let's be clear. There is a level of shade in ballroom. It's just a part of the world. But it taught us to be resilient, a part of what we were living. We were living, surviving, and trying to exist in a world that when we went in this space, that it was ours. Once it became mainstream, it was taken out of our hands, and it becomes ball for profit. So it's about greed and profit and money, and people are putting people in positions to judge others that have hidden agendas. If I'm sitting on a panel, I should be able to judge folks and not say, I really don't like you. So because I don't like you, I'm going to chop you. Or if I don't see you, and then it could be a piece of linen that the thread is off at the bottom of the seam. Then we become so crucial to really nitpick this person's creativity that we don't know that this person used that rent money to get there to the ball, to buy this outfit, and they walk it. And now you looking at something so minute when this person is like, I just want to win this money so I can pay my rent back, so I can have some food to eat. So when that is taken from them, they become violent. And then it becomes the art of competition is gone. You know, folks, it was creative. Folks went home and they sold and they made outfits and they went and they, you know, pulled things together out their closet. The gays are the most creative people in the world. But when it becomes no longer our world, and folks are so grabbing for this moment of, I won $10,000 at a ball. And I'm fabulous and I'm grand and I'm the diva and I'm it. Folks are wanting this, they're grabbing and searching for something so bad of, I just need to see me world. I'm now the grandest dom of them all.
The grandest dom.
You know, I'm the grandest dom of them all. When you just got into ballroom, you haven't got, see, ballroom took a little while. You had to earn your flight. You won and you learn. You know, let me tell you something, with the folks that when I used to compete with, we would hug each other afterwards. If somebody won over, and then this is what they've done. They've changed things up. It used to be grand first and second. If I didn't win grand, at least I know, okay, if they're going to throw me shade, at least I'm going to walk away with first place. I'm going to walk with a trophy. I'm going to walk away with a little something in my pants. But see, now they've made it all about this one prize. And the kids are competing, and this viciousness in the cycle is so vicious and so heartbreaking. I've sat on panels and I've said to people afterwards, you know, you were very good, but unfortunately, you just didn't win. But come back again, try again, because you're very creative. We got to uplift people when they don't win. We've got to tell them to try again, you know, and it's okay, because it takes a lot to be a loser. Comes strength in losing. It's strength in losing, you know, because you giving it your all, your best. And sometimes it doesn't mean that your best wasn't good enough. It means that some shady bitches was on the panel and they just was throwing it for their girlfriend.
But as if, you know, the girls need to learn how to throw shade. You know, that has been, I think, people always got mad, you know, if they didn't get their 10s, but you threw a little bit of shade and you went to the back and scout and you were all good, you know. But the mace, mama, not the mace.
When I saw it, I couldn't believe it. You know, and then that's something that affects everybody. It affects the judges, it affects the wrong.
And he walked away unscathed. Nothing happened to him. He walked away good. So,
but charges are, they didn't put his address up, they didn't put where he lived at, they didn't put where he worked at, and people have filed charges. So don't think he walking away with this unscathed, because sweetheart, you in trouble.
You in danger, girl. All right, Dr. Ashley, then Dr. Faith.
Sure, I'm gonna go. So something that the icon Rayceen has said, I really felt that, like, I was accepted by people in my family, but people in my queer community, in the ball community, they saw me. And I think that that's really the disconnect, not being seen and being accepted, but not being seen. People don't understand the difference. To be accepted is just to be tolerated. You go, okay, you could go there. But to be seen is to be celebrated, to be acknowledged, to be taken in. And now we love that we're getting the eyes of the world with things like Legendary and Pose, and people really getting into the scene, but it's for the wrong reason, you know. And this fear, it used to be, I remember when I was younger, I'm an 80s baby, the 90s made me. And I used to hear like my cousins and them come from, it was all about the finery. It was all about the looks. It was all about the camaraderie. And we gonna go eat after and do. And now the kids want to fight. And where did you get Bear Mace from?
Where did you get
I want to know where you got it from and why you have it on deck. And no, I'm like, what's going on? But also this piece of why cause division when we struggle as a community as it is. Let's not harm each other. Let's not hurt each other. Yeah, there's going to be shade. Yeah, there's going to be things that go on. Anytime you have, I love being Black and gay because we just have a different vibe and different creativity, and we need to protect ourselves and not look at it as, oh, this is the come up that I need. But when you're stuck in survival, $10,000, I do it, throw it all on the line for $10,000. But what are you throwing on the line? What is it all? And having a conversation. A lot of the elders aren't there to guide us. A lot of the elders aren't there to guide us. Either they've passed on or they've moved on. And then people think when you're giving you, sometimes I hear in my communities, when you're getting guidance, people take it as shade, or people take it as clock, and people take it as reading. And it's like, no, baby, I want you to win, and I want you to live, and I want you to be able to get what you deserve to get. I see you outside of this trophy, outside of face, outside of femme, outside of I see you. And we need to have more moments, or more like things, our celebratory events, and more moments in the community where we can commit to seeing each other, so that when we do celebrate the competition of it all, we can go in love.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks for adding that, Dr. Faith.
Somebody's going to be a loser. And I think we have to teach our children, and we have to teach each other. I mean, both Erin and I just ran for public office and we didn't win. But I still felt like I won because I was proud of what I put in. And I think that while, I have not had the same experiences that Dr. Ashley was talking about, Rayceen, what you said to me really hit home to me around, I try to talk to my children about, you're not going to win every time, but do you feel good about what you did? And can you cheer someone else on, even if it's not you winning? So I didn't particularly like the person who beat me. Because you ain't gonna talk crazy about me and think that I'm gonna be okay with that. Now, I'm not gonna let you talk crazy about me, but I do feel happy about the effort that I put in. So I think it's, I look at other people. I didn't know Erin at all, but we talked all the time because I wanted to cheer her on, to support, because that's what we have to do. I just was in contact with a woman who's running in Baltimore County. I don't even know her, but I was like, let me try to cheer her on. And I think sometimes we've lost that. And now that all of our kids get participation trophies for everything, I had to tell the coach from the baseball team my kid was on, he don't need that. Like, they didn't win. And he needs to sit with the fact that they didn't win, and that's okay. Did you have a good time? Did you meet somebody new? What did you get from that? Because we all really do win, but I think we've also just moved to this culture of like competitiveness and viciousness. That's just really concerning. I saw that running. I'm sure Erin did. We were attacked a lot sometimes by women, which was really scary for me and hurtful. But then it made me feel like, what can I be doing now to do something different so that that culture can shift and change? And I think this is an example of, sometimes not everybody's going to win, but what did I gain from that? And am I proud of the effort that I put in? Now, if I'm lazy, then you should have put in more effort. But if you really did put in all that you could, okay, what can I do more the next time? Who can I learn from? Who didn't I listen to last time that I should? Who needs to mentor me? Who should I be mentoring? Should I be a coach instead of the one on the stage? There are a lot of things that I think we can learn from this, but not bear mace. I too am like, where did you get the bear mace? Your mama, because you need a spanking.
I love it. I love it. The bear. Imagine if after the election was passed, you went and bear mace. Imagine that. I don't particularly care for you, bear mace. All right. Well, as we are wrapping it up, we want everyone to do some shameless plugs. So any upcoming events, how can people follow you on social media? Anything you want anyone to know about or, get connected with, this is your opportunity to do so. So I'll start with you, Erin Palmer.
Thank you so much. And in honor of Dr. Faith, I encourage people to follow me on Twitter. It's at Erin Palmer DC. I do a lot of neighborhood level work, including community cleanups. and things that are kid friendly. And I have worked really hard to connect with and mentor other people who are interested in neighborhood level political activity, whether that's running for ANC or getting involved in some other way. And I'm always available to talk and help however I can.
Thank you. Awesome. Dr. Ashley J. Elliott.
You say my whole name, my mother gonna show up. So I am always doing things for the community workshops. I have some things lined up for this fall. Particularly, I have some free and low cost wellness groups for LGBTQIA plus community, moms, Canna moms, single parents, all of that. And you can always find me at Dr. Vivid on Instagram, these TikTok streets, and also on Facebook.
Awesome. Jordan and Joelle, what about you?
Okay. You can find us at the Normal Anomaly Inc. on all social media platforms. We are doing a lot of great things. At the end of next month, we're actually having our Mark Awards, which is our community-based award ceremony. It'll be our second annual Mark Awards. At the end of the year, we are throwing a sex-positive play called Strapped, which we're very excited to be releasing information about that soon. And then I don't know, next year, this year we had our Black Queer AF Music Festival, and we may be repeating that again next year. So just really excited for all the things that we have coming up.
Awesome. Dr. Faith Gibson Hubbard.
So I'm also on social at Faith GH in DC. And I always love that Gibson Hubbard, no hyphenation, but I told my husband, if we're going to be married, it's going to come with me. So I don't know. I feel like God has some good things for me on the horizon. So if you follow me on social media, I look forward to sharing all those things. I love. I just went to took my daughter to high tea at the Mandarin Oriental, and she loved sparkling cider and a champagne flute. So she is my girl. So please follow along for all those fun things, and I will be following each of you. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Rayceen, any plugs?
Where do I begin?
Let's actually begin with Art All Night, which is coming up. We are so excited about it. Everyone, please save the date for September 24th. Team Rayceen Productions will return to the stage at DCHFA for Art All Night Shaw 2022, 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. Baby, we're going to be there all night, and it is free and open to the public. Rayceen, oh my goodness, I'm so excited for Art All Night this year.
It's going to be a long day. We have some special surprises. Look out for our flyer coming out soon with those special announcements.
Yes. We have some special announcement because we have some performers, some special prizes and surprises. And of course, it's Art All Night. So we are seeking visual artists and art vendors for Art All Night 2022 on September 24th. So there are no fees at all to be one of the visual artists or art vendors. And you set up by 6 p.m. and you should stay until at least midnight. So any type of art that you're into, design, creativity, from painting to jewelry to fashion to sculpture to all of that, reach out to us at teamrayceen@gmail.com, and you can, get a table there and exhibit your fabulous wares. As well as we're also seeking volunteers. Yes, we're seeking volunteers in shifts of 1 hour or more for Art All Night. If interested, please go ahead and send an email to teamrayceen@gmail.com. It's going to be a fabulous time, so save that date right now for anyone. As well as everyone, please mark October 14th on your calendars and stay tuned for some announcement with that date. Please also note that Banned Books Week is September 18 to 24, 2022. And especially when it comes to our communities, banned books, baby, they're banning them. They are banning them. The house down boots at this point. We are deep in the bannation. So as it comes to Banned Books Week this year, please keep that in mind. Do what you can to keep some of these books in the forefront, as we educate our communities and move forward. Alrighty, and National Voter Registration Day is September 20th. Yes, and National Voter Registration Day is celebrating 10 years, a decade of that. So please keep in mind, it's very important to vote. You can go and check your status, your voter registration status at headcount.org right now to check your status, pledge to vote, and register to vote as these general elections draw nigh. Panelists, we thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you all. Thank you all. It's been such a pleasure having you all and joining us as we step into the fall, honey. So if you want to follow me, you can go ahead and follow me at It's Krylios on all forms of social media and check out my link tree. We have some very, very special things coming up. So keep an eye open for that. And for all things Rayceen Pendarvis, you can, of course, go to Rayceen.com. You can go to Rayceen.com for that. And for all things Team Rayceen Productions, you can follow us at Team Rayceen on all forms of social media. And, click around our YouTube channel and check out our other interviews, vlogs, forums, and more. And while you're there, make sure that you go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. And listen, most of all, thank you for watching. All links will be in the description below. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.